A single cannon blast reverberated down the mall, but the true shockwave was a living one, emerald banners rippling, scarlet ranks wheeling, and a 7-year-old prince unleashing a grin so fierce it cracked the regal facade of trooping the color, and reminded Britain why the monarchy still owns the world's grandest stage. The annual pageant might be 275 years old, yet 2025 felt freshly charged, partly because King Charles III swung back into the saddle just 12 months after chemotherapy had confined him to a carriage. That lone switch from wheels to stirrups blasted a silent message of resilience down the columns of household division guards. This reign intends to gallop, not glide. Lining the route, veterans who once marched for Elizabeth II exchanged knowing nods. Tourists held their breath. Streaming viewers tallied goosebumps in real time. What they saw next merged Hollywood spectacle with drill square rigor. Over 1,000 soldiers stamped precise footfalls through sun-bleached dust while 200 horses tossed manes that shimmered like silk pennants. 300 musicians laced brass thunder with fife trills, the combined sound ricocheting off the Victorian stone of Admiralty Arch. Somewhere in that perfect roar a quiet truth pulsed. Britain may quibble about monarchy's cost, but the product remains unbeatably cinematic. If decoding those cinematic moments sets your pulse racing, you'll find an entire vault of insider briefings waiting a click away. No rush, no pop-ups, just a discreet doorway when you decide to step through. Back on horse guards, the royal corps assembled with choreography so tight it felt choreographed years in advance, which, in fact, it was. Queen Camilla glided past crowds in a carriage, grey silk hat mirroring the plumes of life guards behind her. The renewed Princess of Wales, Catherine, arrived by Landor in a Catherine Walker teal coat dress. Colour theorists later noted teal's link to restorative calm. Beside her, Princess Charlotte matched Mummy shade for shade, a small but pointed wink to continuity. Prince George sat ramrod straight, reading tiny cue cards of regimental trivia William had slipped into his pocket at breakfast. And Prince Louis, gap-toothed, irrepressible, performed an air traffic controller wave that soon became meme currency from Seoul to Sao Paulo. The royal rhythm hit an abrupt rest when black armbands flashed along the gold braid. 2 days earlier, an Air India crash in Ahmedabad had claimed 241 lives. At Charles's command, drums ceased, rifles angled downward, and London's city hum softened to a hush uncanny for a capital of 9 million. Even Louis froze, fingers half raised, before folding his hands the way Charlotte had taught him on the drive-in. 60 seconds later, the grenadier drums reignited. Sorrow and celebration marched on in step, proof that the crown can mourn and dazzle in the same heartbeat. Hook 1. How many institutions can spin grief into grandeur without missing a beat? And would the monarchy survive if it ever failed that alchemy? The procession pushed toward Buckingham Palace, spilling color like wet paint across grey asphalt. Reports later confirmed viewership on the BBC soared the moment Catherine and her children came into full frame, eclipsing even the cavalry charges. Palace media advisors took note, the future Queen's polished calm is box office gold. And yet, the broadcast director couldn't resist zooming when Louis leaned so far from the carriage rail that Charlotte yanked him back by the sleeve. Microdrama trumped macro pageantry. Twitter's trending tab crowned him Wave King before the band reached the Victoria Memorial. Hook 2. If one mischievous prince can hijack a centuries-old ritual, what might he do to monarchy's playbook a decade from now? Behind that playbook stands a queen consort navigating a labyrinth of expectations. Camilla, step-grandmother to the lively troupe, was seen exchanging a laugh with Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, after Louis's near tumble. Body language analysts called the smile, relief-laced with strategy, a public indicator that playful chaos remains contained by seasoned hands. Sophie herself earned online applause moments later when cameras caught her leaning toward Louis in the Duke of Wellington's office, explaining why colors carry battle honors like living scrolls. He listened for 10 precious seconds before testing the office's velvet blind cord. Sophie's steady gaze guided the court safely back to its hook, anti-diplomacy in action. Hook 3. Could Sophie's subtle coaching be the secret weapon that arms the next generation against future tabloid tempests? Absent faces spoke almost as loudly as present ones. No Harry or Meghan at this balcony. Insiders insist no invite was issued, and while veteran watchers called it predictable, the omission still felt like an exclamation mark. For the first time in memory, a trooping balcony shot traveled the global wires with a tightened cast list. Only working royals, only those pulling daily weight. Critics labeled it a pared-back tableau, supporters called it brand clarity. Either way, it crystallized Charles's mission to streamline a family often sprawling under its own titles. The convoy swung through palace gates, riders saluted, the gold state coach gleamed in sun so bright even London-born spectators reached for sunglasses. Then balcony doors parted, and a million smartphone shutters riveted. George, Charlotte, and Louis formed a neat file beside their mother, a living mood board for monarchy's modern phase. They waved in unison, once, twice, before Louis pivoted to copy his grandfather's wrist mechanics. Camilla whispered into Charles's ear. Overhead microphones failed to pick it up, but lip readers suspect it was something halfway between affection and admonishment. The king's face cracked into a grin anyway, the kind seldom seen since coronation morning. Hook 4. When even the sovereign can't suppress delight, does protocol start to evolve? Or does it simply reveal its softer seams? Enter the Red Arrows, 9 scarlet jets slicing the sky at 400 knots, drawing the Union Jack in smoke. This year their tanks carried a 40% mix of sustainable aviation fuel. Environmentalists applauded the incremental step, staunch traditionalists shrugged. Yet palace comms teams jumped, slipping the factoid into the official after-action statement, a modern footnote stapled onto 18th century theatre. Meanwhile, data analysts, yes, they exist inside Buckingham's walls, notice something telling. The broadcast's peak minute was not the fly past, but the 20 seconds when Louis mimed the cockpit salute back at pilots. Engagement, more than ever, appears to hinge on genuine sparks inside a furnace of ritual. Hook 5. If authenticity now outguns airshow adrenaline, how long before royal strategists trade precision for personality on purpose? The statement that followed dusk was all gratitude and numbers. 1,000 troops, 200 horses, 300 musicians, yet tucked into the final paragraph came a nugget. We extend thanks to young volunteers who assisted behind the scenes. Sources later confirmed the volunteers were part of Catherine's early years initiative, hinting that future troopings may integrate community faces into backstage logistics. It's a small shift, but one aligning with Charles's ongoing mantra, lighten the load, brighten the crown. Night had settled over Pall Mall by the time the last horse was unsaddled, but inside private apartments the Wales children reportedly sipped hot chocolate and replayed drone footage of jets in slow motion. William used the moment to whisper a lesson about service. Catherine, a reminder about stamina. And Louis. He is said to have asked whether next year the Red Arrows could paint teal smoke, because that's Mummy's superhero color. Aides took notes, stranger ideas have flown. Hook 6. Could a child's whim today become tomorrow's eco-friendly spectacle? Or will tradition keep those smoke trails firmly scarlet? History offers parallels. Edward VII's childhood pranks softened Victoria's image. Elizabeth and Margaret's wartime broadcasts stitched courage into brittle morale. Each generation's mischief eventually becomes an anecdote that humanizes an institution many critics label aloof. Charles appears to understand, perhaps better than most, that allowing a little chaos now may inoculate the monarchy against larger upheavals later. Hook 7. We've watched a king risk a saddle, a queen steadied by humor, and a child turn etiquette into entertainment. What will the next 12 months add to that trilogy? Plans are already penciled. Within weeks, Catherine and Sophie will lead a children's mental health garden event, seeds sown by George and Charlotte under Louis's inevitable soil fling. Come autumn, Charles will host the first eco-summit on Duchy land, touting sustainable aviation fuels with Red Arrow's pilots in attendance. And next spring, if rumors hold, William may test a stripped-back model for palace garden parties, inviting fewer VIPs and more community volunteers, proof that monarchy can reseed itself if spring showers fall in time. Yet numbers alone cannot tell tomorrow's story. Only images do that. Balcony smiles, teal silk stirring, a tiny hand raised sky-high in defiance of grown-up decorum. Spend an hour on any social feed, and you'll see which image won the day. It wasn't Charles's salute, or William's gleaming saber. It was Louis, wave at full throttle, cheeks puffed, nation giggling. Some worry that kind of cuteness cheapens centuries of gravitas. Others argue it's precisely the fresh breath heritage needs to keep from mummifying under its own medals. Which side writes the future? That decision is still years, perhaps reigns, away. But this much is certain, while scarlet plumes and silver trumpets sign the score, it's curiosity, pure, unfiltered, sometimes unruly, that will keep audiences streaming for the encore. And Trooping 2025 provided an encore worth replaying until the drums roll again. So, eyes forward, hearts ready, next June's cavalry trot may sound the same, but the script is already mutating in the hands of a gap-toothed prankster and a sovereign determined to ride on, rain or shine.